Everybody, Kit here. We recently got a chance to talk to Takaya Imamura, who is a former Nintendo artist who's responsible for a lot of really iconic Nintendo characters. He designed a lot of the cast of Star Fox, Captain Falcon, even created Tingle. He left Nintendo a couple years ago and has been off on his own and actually has a new game coming out called Omega 6. And this is a really great interview. We talk about his time at Nintendo, a little bit about Omega 6 and his career overall. Here it is. We hope you enjoy it. Imamura-san, it's a wonderful honor to speak with you. And we're very excited about your new game. We've had a chance to play it. It's a lot of fun. For our first question, we wanted to ask, when you left Nintendo a few years ago, did you know that you wanted to continue making games? Or was this game as an offshoot of the manga sort of happy accident?
I really wanted to write this manga, or write a manga. And the game kind of came about as a happy coincidence, happy accident.
What is it about science fiction settings that appeal to you so much at Nintendo? Many of the games that you were involved on and had, some of the very popular enduring characters have this sort of science fiction setting, and obviously Omega 6 has this in a very strong way as well.
From a very young age, I've always liked science fiction, novels, films, etc. And but I think the biggest influence was when I was in elementary school. So maybe around 10 or 11, 1970. It came to Japan in 1978, but Star Wars Episode 4. When I saw that, the impact that had on me was enormous.
At Nintendo, you were surrounded by, and you got the chance to work with so many of these, legendary game developers. And now that you're in this role of leading a bit of a smaller team, probably than you did at Nintendo, are there any tricks or lessons that you learn from people like Mr. Miyamoto? It's like, aha, I finally have a chance to apply this in a game of my own that I have all this creative control over now.
Not so much lowering the barrier for entry, so much as making a game that is enjoyable and can be enjoyed by anybody is the first thing. And the other one is getting to a point with the game design and the polish. Normally, pretty much anybody would be happy with taking it to that level and then dialing it in a bit more. That was the kind of thing I learned at Nintendo. It's not just this is the level that anybody would be satisfied with. And then the Nintendo way is to take it that much further.
We observed this ourselves when we worked at Nintendo and would visit Kyoto, but this sort of sense of like Kyoto style craftsmanship that you see in some of these artisans that have been working for hundreds of years in Kyoto being applied to a sense of game development. So we wanted to ask you, is that observation accurate? Would you say that same kind of mentality exists and is kind of unique to Nintendo with that Kyoto setting?
Kyoto has a very long history. The shops, there's a lot of traditional arts that go back, can be traced back a long way. So I don't think it's necessarily something that's just exclusive to Nintendo themselves, but it's that area, that city. The kind of vibe flows through everything there.
Now that you've left Nintendo and are independent, was there something that you've thought to yourself, gosh, I've always wanted to try this in a game if I can make it my own game independently, that you weren't able to do at Nintendo, and finally you have the opportunity to do that now?
Rather than something I want to do, I think that the biggest difference is I don't have anybody telling me what to do and to redo things over and over again. It's just easier.
The initial premise for Omega 6, in some ways, it feels like it's sort of ripped out of the headlines, where humanity has achieved this ability to extend their life. And in the United States, there's a person who works in technology who's sort of become famous because he's doing all these treatments and trying these methods to see how long, can he reverse aging or stop his own aging. Were you sort of looking at examples like this and saying, oh, people are doing this, this could be a good, interesting starting point for this world that I'm going to create? Or did it sort of come to you separate from that, just sort of as your own musings of humanity and kind of the circle of life?
The main reason I made the two characters so long lived, essentially giving them eternal life, was that kind of like Star Trek, I wanted them to have lots of different adventures. So I need them to stay, alive through those adventures. And that's basically where it came from.
As an artist, I'm wondering, do you have any keys for creating a character that is not just memorable from a visual standpoint, but will kind of integrate well into a video game? I think we look at the characters that you worked on, like Captain Falcon, Tingle, the cast of Star Fox, and they're all just so popular, today, as much, perhaps even more popular now than when they first came out. And I think the characters in Omega 6 have a lot of those same sensibilities, but we're not artists, so we don't know exactly like, oh, well, it's this or it's that. Like as the artist and the person who is doing that, what would you say are like the one or two things that you aim for when creating a new character?
I think at the base of it is the simplicity I aim for. I'll come up with it as an initial design, and I'm always looking for what I can remove, but while still retaining the base character and the design and the look. What can be removed and not detract from that, but what's unneeded.
Do you have a favorite character out of all the ones you've ever created? Maybe this is a hard question.
It'd be Fox McCloud, I think.
So we played the game on Nintendo Switch, obviously as Nintendo fans, and I think a similar series to Omega 6 that Nintendo fans will be familiar with is Famicom Detective Club, and we had to ask, what was your relationship like with Sakamoto-san, and did you happen to take any sort of points of inspiration from that series as you were thinking of translating the Omega 6 manga into a game?
So yeah, I know Sakamoto-san. We go out for drinks, etc. So I get on with him well enough, but we've never worked together. And as for the inspiration or any inspiration taken from Famicom Detective Club, I'm actually a bigger fan of his Metroid games than anything. As to why Mega 6, the Triangle Stars, became an adventure game, there's two reasons for that. One is that the producer who suggested we make a game out of the comic in the first place already had a system in mind with the development team that was good at that genre. And the other reason is the adventure genre itself lends itself well to expanding stories, telling a story rather than focusing more on the action.
You had such a long career at Nintendo, but I think you were making games with relatively large and robust teams with a lot of resources. And now that you are involved in making a game on your own, probably with a bit of a smaller team, is there anything new that you realized or learned about game development that didn't quite dawn on you in your many years at Nintendo?
To tell the truth, when I first joined Nintendo, and we were developing games for the Super Nintendo, the 64, the teams were pretty small. The advantage of working in a smaller team is it's easier to have this shared vision, because there's so many less people, and it's more fun. I feel, anyway, personally. I'd always, look at Bit Summit, which is, an event held down in Kyoto. I'd always had this kind of, I've always hankered after the indie game. I kind of felt not jealous, but seeing these small teams making these games that they wanted to make. So it was good to kind of get back to my roots, as it were.
We did a podcast a few months ago talking about how a lot of the kind of legacy Nintendo developers are going to be probably retiring sometime during the Switch 2 generation. And I think we suspect that you're maybe doing something now that they're maybe a little bit jealous of applying everything that they've learned in their career to a smaller project that you're really passionate about, that you have all this sort of ownership about. Do you think we might see that when some of them officially retire, of like, well, I'm retired, but I've got this one more passion project that I wanted to do that I couldn't do at Nintendo? Maybe you're a bit of a trailblazer in that sense.
I was thinking that it would be fun to kind of become a talent manager, as it were, for these people who leave. because there's lots of opportunities out there for new creative work. Matching them up with teams or companies or something to create new things once they've left Nintendo.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Where do you see Omega 6 going from here? You'll have the manga, you'll have the game. Do you have aspirations to do maybe a TV show or a movie, or are you kind of happy now with this being the scope of it?
Well, I'm actually working on the follow-up to the manga. I'm about 80% done. So there's that. As for the game, if the international version is going on sale soon, so if that performs well, I'd really like to work on a sequel. And I've been thinking about putting some low polygon shooting elements into it as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. We're actually surprised that there was a bit of an action element in the game with the rock paper scissors battle system. It's not full on action, but it's more than you often see in those sorts of adventure games. So I think that kind of mashup or unexpected twist would work well. Well, we have one more question, and we have to ask because it's a series that we're always thinking about and what could be on the future for it. What would you like to see out of a new Star Fox game at some point in the future?
I think Nintendo have been talking about putting more time, effort, money, investing into their IP business as a whole outside of games. So if there's one thing I'd like to see from Star Fox, a film, and I would love to be a part of that. I actually said, if you make it, I want to help out.
Yeah, that would be very exciting. We remember the cinematics that were made to support Star Fox Zero, and those were a good, really cool glimpse into what that could look like.